Get more confidence. Get that promotion. Get moving up the corporate ladder. Get a better gig with an MBA from Mays Business School at Texas A&M University. Whether you're starting out or stepping up, now you can take your career to a whole new level with a full-time MBA in College Station and convenient weekend options at Houston City Center. Texas A&M has a program to suit your schedule. Visit mba.tamu.edu. And Giga Maggie.
Howdy, welcome to Mays MasterCast. I'm Shannon Deere, the Assistant Dean for Graduate Programs, here with your wonderful host, Ben Wiggins.
Hey, Shannon. How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I'm cautiously optimistic. We are back open as a state. We'll see how it goes. I hope people stay safe, stay well. We'll see what happens.
Agreed. I am not as open as a individual state. I am staying home despite
the sovereign republic of giraffe deer.
That's right. The sovereign republic of giraffe deer is staying home while others are shopping at Hobby Lobby, but doesn't seem like worth dying for to me. But I'm supportive of opening businesses. It's just tough and a little scary.
Yes, I agree.
Today on the show, we have Colleen Konetzke. Colleen was one of my students when she was an undergraduate. She graduated from A&M in 2017 with a BBA in accounting and a master's in finance. She was in the professional program in accounting. And she now is a senior associate at Bain Company. But one of the reasons why I asked Colleen to be on the show was because she founded Feed the Frontline with some colleagues and others in the community, which is a very timely nonprofit that provides meals to people working on the front line. So primarily healthcare workers, although they are looking at possible ways to expand that mission now that COVID is evolving. But they are providing meals to healthcare workers, which benefits both the restaurants that they are connected to and the healthcare workers for whom they are providing lunch. So we really appreciate all that Feed the Frontline is doing and are proud of Colleen and her representation of Texas A&M in this unique way.
Yes, let's get into it. And it's a beautiful day in Aggieland.
Enjoy the show.
We welcome Colleen Konetzke to the show. How's your day?
It's going well. Thanks for starting with me bright and early. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Did you have a nice weekend?
Yeah, got outside some. Weather's beautiful in Houston. It's about all we can do right now, but with quarantine, but it's nice when we have good weather.
Definitely. What is your favorite superpower?
Oh gosh, as of late, this one's probably top of mind just because we can't go to the gym, can't go to the doctor or whatever. Been thinking a lot lately how I wish I could be like Elastigirl and just be more flexible. Because I'm trying to run and trying to bike and all these new things, since we can't go to the gym and my body hurts.
Yeah. I find myself sore more often now. Like I'm working out at home and for whatever reason, like I wake up sore most days. And that did not happen very often when I was going to CrossFit most days. So I feel your pain there. Give us 60 seconds on your road to Bain Company through Mays, et cetera.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try to keep it to 60. My path to Mays wasn't quite traditional. I was a transfer student. So I actually did my freshman year at the University of Wisconsin. My dad's from Wisconsin. I have a bunch of family up there.
Yeah.
And loved the city, loved the school. Just wasn't, I swam in college and just wasn't a good fit with the team and the coach up there. And so transferred back home to A&M, which in high school, I said I would never go to Texas A&M.
Yeah.
But it ended up being my second chance. And so came into Mays as a sophomore, didn't really know anybody and didn't really get involved in anything or start making friends until my senior year. And luckily I was in the professional program of accounting. So had that extra fifth year. And after I finished my eligibility in 2016, did a short internship in public accounting, realized it just wasn't for me and started recruiting for consulting. I was a little late to the party, but managed to somehow convince Bain to hire me. And so super grateful for the chance to be there. And I've loved my time there so far.
That's brilliant. Something pinged in my mind as you said that the swimming team at Wisconsin was not a good fit for you. When I was at Rice, we had some team drama with the swimming team as well. Is that just a thing for intercollegiate athletics in general? I mean, obviously you see a lot of transfers in many sports, some of them higher profile. But I did track and field in college, and that seemed like a pretty low drama team. But that's just one anecdotal experience. What are your thoughts on all that?
I think that when you're going through recruiting and there's just like a whirlwind 48-hour weekend, and you're in high school, you're 17, 18, and all these schools are trying to convince you to come, it can be overwhelming. And I don't think I made like a wrong choice. Like I'm really glad that I went and experienced it and came back. It definitely helped me grow in a lot of ways. But yeah, I also think some of that happens from like when you have a relatively new coach and you have, athletes did not choose that coach and that coach did not choose those athletes. And, things like that. And just programs going through changes, growing and maturing. The Wisconsin program was going through a lot of changes and growing a lot when I was there. And you see like assistant coach turnover and stuff like that. Like it wasn't specific to Wisconsin. Like I've seen it at other schools as well. But I think for me, it was just deciding like, is this what's best for me? Like, am I weak for like not wanting to stay, like, or put up with it or whatever? Or do I just need to know like how I tick and what motivates me in making a change? And so that was a big call, but obviously I'm really glad I did it.
Kyle at this point would tell you to read David Epstein's book Range, because that's his favorite book and he talks about it all the time. And I'm always telling him, Kyle, you need to talk less about that book. But anyway, in that book, David Epstein talks a little bit about the perception of quitting and how it might be more effective as a society to view sticking things out. So highly recommend that. Okay, so now where did you grow up then? You said your dad was from Wisconsin, but I take it you were from closer to here?
Mm-hmm. I was born and raised in San Antonio, as was my mom. So.
Nice. How many in your family?
Just me and my little brother, who's graduating from A&M this semester.
Nice. Whoop. What was your first job?
I mean, like in high school, I think it was probably like I was probably teaching swim lessons.
Okay.
It's like the only thing that worked with my schedule. Did a lot of swim lessons, teaching a lot of lifeguards. And then Bain has been like my first like real job.
Yeah. What was your greatest challenge as a child?
Oh gosh. I think I like struggled on and on with just like mental toughness and self-confidence as a swimmer. I think you can probably relate as an athlete. Like, I don't think we do nearly enough mental preparation. And especially in college was like not a thing. And that was something that swimming is like 90% mental. And so I definitely struggled on and off with that as a kid, whether it be like mental blocks with certain races or, good seasons, bad seasons, that sort of thing. Was definitely something I struggled with.
How were you able to fight that later in your career?
I tried a lot of different things. We would do like some exercises on the swim team. So like there was a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I think like I saw couple different sports psychologists. Still I'm like on the fence about whether or not I thought that was like effective or not. Saw a couple at A&M, but I don't know if I ever like completely conquered it. Like I think by the end you do something for 15 years and you're just like so burned out that I knew I was just like ready to move on. And I think just like reflecting and realizing that like there are much more important things in life. And that this is like just like something small that's not your entire life and probably can't be. And so I don't know. I think it was just like growing up and maturing and like making peace with it and realizing that like there's a lot more out there than just sport. I think is like eventually how I dealt with it.
That also does seem to be a recurring theme in swimming specifically, not as much in something like track and field, because track and field is pretty high impact. And the practices are not as long. And like swimming, my understanding is there's still a lot of 2-a-days in swimming. And it's just a really, really grueling practice schedule. And with many sports, impact sports, contact sports, you just can't do that kind of practicing. So they've cut back a lot, but swimming is still kind of that way if I understand correctly.
Yeah. I started doing doubles when I was 12 and because I retired when I was 22. So I did it for 10 years. It wasn't year round, but then when I got into high school and college, so like 8 of those years, it was 3 days a week during the school year, 4 days a week. We would do doubles during the summer. And it was year round. Like we got maybe a week or two off in the spring and a week or two off in August. And that was about it. So it was, sometimes I think like if I could do it all over again, I would pick a different sport. Not that I don't have any talents in any other sports, but if I could choose.
If you could reach into swimming and change that culture, would you do it? Or is that just sort of a necessary condition of like the arms race to be the best?
I think it's sort of a necessary condition. Like, it's just so, Michael Phelps used to say, for every day you take off, it takes 2 days to get back to where you were. And I mean, he never took a day off when he was training for the Olympics. We take Sundays off. I think, there needs to be like more emphasis on rest, but I think swimming, just that much volume of training, just because it is such a full body thing, it is kind of necessary. Like it's hard. I was a distance swimmer, so that was part of it. For the sprinters, they could probably do a little less, because they're, high muscle, real short races. But I had longer races, and so that was kind of unavoidable.
Since we're here, what was the highest moment for you? We're talking a little bit about the drawbacks of being a competitive swimmer, but what was your best moment? When did you feel most engaged, alive, excited?
So my freshman year, just because Wisconsin was a great place, but it just wasn't for me, right? Wasn't a good fit. I was probably at my lowest, like mentally, physically, emotionally, and came to A&M. Even though I kind of blew off the coach in high school, he was so kind as to give me a second chance, and came to A&M. Wasn't really sure if I would make the conference team. Made the conference team and just had like the absolute need of my life, like qualified for NCAAs for the national championships. Wasn't expecting to, wasn't even remotely close before that meet. And so I think it was just like, it was kind of like my comeback was like, oh wow, like I can do something. I am worth something. And this is working. I'm in the right place. Like just all of that confirmation was really exciting. And it's hard to choose between that and my senior year. I didn't have like a very good season, but I did help our team towards like their first SEC championships. And it was like the first time, and that, we'd been in the conference for 4 years at that point. And on the fourth year, we won conference. And so that was like fun to help the team, like the girls, towards our first title. That was really awesome.
Yeah. Tell our listeners about winning the 800 free relay at US Nationals. Yeah.
So that was during like long course in the summer, which is like the Olympic size pool, which is what the Olympics are in. And that was a total blast because it was at home in San Antonio. And so like a lot of family was there and that sort of thing. And a longer relay like that, like as a distance swimmer, I don't normally get to be a part of relays. But a longer relay like that was something that was just super fun to be a part of. Because like I said, I don't get to do relays very often. And so a couple of my closest friends were on that relay, and it was something really special for us to win at a meet like that at home.
And then competing at the U.S. Olympic trials.
That was a ton of fun. I was really glad I did it. And it required, even though I was technically done with my NCAA season, I like swam an extra 3-4 months in order to go. And I had barely missed it when I was a senior in high school in 2012. And so I like really, really wanted to go. And I didn't swim that well at all, but it was a ton of fun, like just being there, the feeling of just being there and having teammates make the Olympics or get really close. It was just such a good note to end on. And that was like the last time I competed. So
we have several other areas to cover with you, but we also want to hear today about the nonprofit you started in record time called Feed the Frontline. What is the mission of Feed the Frontline, first off?
Yeah, so our mission is basically twofold. We want to support local businesses, particularly restaurants, because they're some of the hardest hit right now during this pandemic. And then also like feed the people that are truly on the front lines of this pandemic. So most of our focus so far has been healthcare workers, especially at hospitals. And we're thinking about broadening that mission a little bit in the coming weeks as things start to open back up. But so yeah, we collect donations, buy meals from local restaurants to keep them open, and then donate those meals. And it's been a blast so far.
How did it get started?
So a coworker of mine sent around an email to the office just saying, hey, we don't necessarily have we're not medical workers, right? We can't really sew masks. We're consultants, but would love to be able to help out during this time. And so he had thrown around a couple ideas like pro bono consulting for restaurants or this meal program, which ended up being Feed the Frontline. And it was something similar had started in San Francisco, and they had written a Medium blog post about it. We changed the model a little bit and kind of made it our own. And it kind of took off from there. I'm not sure we ever pursued the pro bono consulting for restaurants portion because I don't think any of us expected how big it would get. And it's gotten so much bigger than we could have imagined, which is fantastic. We're really happy.
We heard that there were some serendipitous connections involved with the early stages of the organization. Tell us a little more about that.
Mm-hmm. So about a weekend, we were working with one of our favorite local restaurants here in Houston, Common Bond. There's a little bit of irony in the name there, I guess now. And
yeah,
we placed an order with them, and they responded and were like, "But you already ordered from us last week or something." And they were confused, and we were confused. And it turns out that there was a woman, a teacher, with a charter school here in Houston, who had basically been running her own one-woman shop and was going by the name Feeding the Frontlines.
Yeah.
And we didn't know about each other. And so Common Bond was able to make this introduction. And it was very serendipitous, like you said, in that Sarah was her name, was covering restaurants and hospitals that we weren't covering apart from the overlap with Common Bond. And so we joined forces and, teamed up, and I've loved the, extra perspective she has been able to bring because she's incredibly mission minded and, so kind and thinks about things that we don't. And so I know it's probably been a lot for her as a teacher working with a bunch of consultants, but I so value her perspective and the balance. And like I said, the fact that she's so mission-minded, all that she brings to the team. And so it's been really, that's a really fun way to make a new friend during a pandemic when you can't leave your house.
Yeah.
So that was super awesome. Just making those connections across Houston that way.
Mm-hmm. And you talked a little bit about the nature of being entrusted with a large amount of donation capital, people giving a lot of money, just speaking frankly. But let's talk a little bit more about the fast nature of it, the whirlwind of it all. How has that part of it been?
It's definitely been interesting. And overwhelming at times, but we have such a great team. I know I can rely on my coworkers, my teammates if I need something, and the team has grown really fast too. It's so hard because I think, when you want to start a business or a nonprofit, there's obviously a ton of planning and work that goes into it. And I've obviously learned that if I ever do decide, this might be enough of a taste for me, but if I ever do decide to start my own business again, I would obviously go about it very differently. But at this point, it was so different because when we first started this, we wanted the meals served yesterday. There is such a sense of urgency with the pandemic, I can't remember what it was, but there was some statistic that like restaurants only have like a week's worth of cash on them or something. I'm probably completely misquoting it, but basically it was just this statistic that we read saying like restaurants cannot afford to stay in business very long with the shutdown. And, learning about the growing number of cases, learning about the sacrifices that healthcare workers were making on the front line, it just really built this incredible sense of urgency. And so we really had to, for lack of a less trite phrase, move fast and break things and find whatever worked, just because, like I said, we needed these meals served yesterday, but we also wanted to do it right. We wanted to do it the right way. Not that other ways are wrong, but we just wanted to collect money in a responsible way. And so, at first some people wanted to use Venmo or set up a GoFundMe, which would have been fine, but like personal GoFundMes are not tax deductible, and so making sure we were doing everything right and painstakingly waiting for the Secretary of State to get back to us with our incorporation paperwork, or, IRS got back to us in my mind very quickly. So that was really nice. But trying to balance that between, we needed the meal served yesterday versus we need to collect the money in a correct and sustainable way where later on, we won't regret, what we did.
Right.
And so that was very hard at first. I think one of the biggest things we ran into was getting a bank account set up quickly. Getting a payment platform set up quickly. I think we tried 4 or 5 online payment platforms and found that every single one took, 7 to 10 business days for the money to hit your bank account. And it was like, well, but we needed the money yesterday. And so figuring all that out on the fly, it was just, try again. And I feel like we were just kind of battering ourselves against a door to finally get it to open. We kept trying and got creative, and yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. How did you get 501c3 status so quickly?
So there's 2 different forms you can fill out to apply for 501c3 status. You have to fill out form 1023, but there's an easy version, and then there's the long form. The easy version is for expedited status, and it's a much shorter form. It basically guarantees you're going to be audited, but it allows you to get status faster. And then there's some other small legal constraints, things you can and can't do because you did the short form and not the long form. But we did not expect, just with everything going on with payment protection program or paycheck protection program and relief packages for small businesses and all that, stimulus payments and all that, we didn't think the IRS would get back to us that quickly, but they did in less than a month. And so, which was just fantastic. And so we were operating as if we were 501c3 because that's what you're supposed to do. And then when you get status, everything retroactively is tax deductible. But it sounds a lot better to tell people they are actually 501c3 than they're 501c3 pending, because it just sounds it sounds kind of iffy.
I'm 501c3 pending, for any of our listeners who are wondering. Not really.
So yeah, it was a lot harder, not a lot harder, but it was a little harder to get people to donate to us and stuff when we were pending. Certain people couldn't give to us donor advice funds and things like that. But now that we have it, but yeah, I'm still surprised. I mean, the letter came last Tuesday, so I'm still oh my gosh.
What has been the most surprising thing that you've learned or that's happened in the process, other than the IRS getting back to you in a month?
It's really 2 things. How easy and difficult it was to set this up. I learned very quickly that when you're setting something up like this, your own business or something like that, there are just so many roadblocks that you cannot see. And it almost started to become habit. If we said, oh, we're going to do something, or, oh, we're going to change the web page, or we're going to do this or that, I just almost came to expect, something's going to go wrong. There's going to be roadblocks. Something's going to get in our way. And so that's why I think it's why I'm surprised that we were able to get it up so quickly. I think also too, what's been surprising and terrifying, but also like overwhelming in a good way, is just the outpouring of generosity and, how much money we've been able to raise and just the support from the community. It's been like truly humbling, and it's been really cool.
You said terrifying. What has made you brave in the course of the process in order to overcome that?
It's terrifying in that I think if you ask me versus other people of the team, I'm the one handling the money. I'm the treasurer and director. And so it's feeling that weight of responsibility, and that a lot of people are trusting us with their money. Yeah. And I need to make sure it's handled correctly. But I think what helps like make us brave, right, is like seeing the notes. We get notes and pictures from the frontline workers. And I've dealt with some restaurants directly with larger donations. And so even though I'm stuck at home, I can't leave my house, and I can't actually go interact with the people that we're serving, I have gotten to a little bit virtually, and just getting that feedback and that encouragement. And, just like knowing that you're making an impact, right? I think that is what keeps us brave and what keeps us going and wanting to, push more, raise more, that sort of thing.
Okay, let's shift gears. Bain is a firm that a lot of May's students target as an employer. What would surprise students the most about getting a successful start there? What advice would you give to current students trying to break into the consulting industry?
Oh gosh, this is a tough one. Just because it's so competitive, and I think there's plenty of people every year. There's only so many spots, and it's a very incredibly difficult interview process. Yeah. But just a few years ago, we didn't recruit at A&M, and now we're starting to more, which is really exciting because I think, Aggies can be top crop just like any other school. Yeah. I think just going in, with that expectation and like knowing it's incredibly competitive. And I honestly think that like there are tons of options. There are tons of great options outside of Bain too. Lots of firms that do similar things. It's funny, you don't need, I think one of the misconceptions about it is like, you don't need a certain degree or background to get a job in consulting. Yeah. I had someone in my class my first year who studied the classics at Oxford. Like, you don't need to be engineering or business. It certainly can help. Because if we're looking for like quantitative skills, it can definitely help. But you don't have to have a certain background. We're just looking for someone who can communicate well, but also like have analytical horsepower. Because we're looking like, who do we want to put in front of a client?
As a former MBA student myself, consulting is sometimes thought of as, I wouldn't say the holy grail, but it's definitely what a lot of MBA students aspire to. And the book on consulting is that it is kind of a glamour sport, so to speak, but the hours are really long. What's the best part of consulting that people don't know about? And then other than the hours, what's the biggest drawback?
Mm-hmm. So, gosh, for me, and this is like, they tell us not to say this because it's like one of the sappiest answers, but the best part about it for me has been the people, like the people I get to work with every day. I've just had some fantastic teams and people with such different backgrounds and different ways of thought, but so cool. The people are really neat. I guess I would say like another bonus is just how transferable the skills are. And I didn't really experience that until I went on like an externship, which is like they let us go work at a different company for 6 months, which is insane. And I recently returned from an externship and I was working someplace else and realizing that like the habits and discipline and structured thought and like ways of structuring things just in general, all of that I had learned that had been drilled into me at Bain set me up well to do other things. But at the same time, I think some of the drawbacks, one being, I think everyone wants to travel and everyone loves the idea of traveling for work. I'm like, oh, you get to go all these cool places and stuff. And there is some of that. My 2 cents is that travel's overrated. It's exhausting. You're never home. Everybody wants to do alt travel, which is where you go someplace else on the weekend for the cost of the flights to go home. But then it's like, you didn't go home for 2 whole weeks. You only have one small suitcase. And just, I don't know, for me personally, like I was at home for a year, local. I traveled for a year, and I didn't even travel that far, but it's when you're stuck in the airport until 2 a.m. and you still have to be at work at 8 the next day. Like you still have the responsibilities and workload, right? And so I think, like, I don't know. I think travel's overrated. And then it is such like a unique, fast-paced environment. And I'm changing what I'm doing every 4 to 6 months. Like I'm working on something new every 4 to 6 months. And it kind of like, I don't know, it's like your, what's the word I'm looking for? Attention span is like pretty short then, right? Like I can't imagine, like if I were to go into an industry job and be doing the same thing for a really long time, like I think that would just be an adjustment for me. And so it's like this dynamic, you keep changing what you do, and maybe you never get really deep on one thing, at least until you've been at the firm for a while. And you'll see that at all firms. It can be hard to specialize right away. And so if you know like what you want to do, or if you know what you're interested in and what you want in life, like consulting's probably not for you. Just because you jump around so much.
How do you feel then? Do you like the idea? I wasn't sure from your answer.
Mm-hmm.
Does getting to dip your toe in a lot of different stuff from a mental perspective, is that a feature for you then?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I like it an awful lot, and so I think my plan is to go to business school and then come back for 2 years. And I don't plan on staying after that, but I also don't know where I would go. Because I still don't know what I would do. And so I think if I can find something that's dynamic, like that, I've gotten really into social impact at Bain. And then I've also gotten really into utilities. I haven't found a way to marry the two yet. And I probably won't. And I don't know where to take me. So I'm not worried about like, what am I going to do 4 years from now? I'll figure it out. But I think it makes it it kind of makes it a challenge. It's like, I can't change jobs every 4 to 6 months outside of consulting. Right. And so I need to really find something that I'm really interested in, and stay there at least a year or two, because it's just a different environment.
Makes sense. Going back, is there anything that you would have done differently at Texas A&M?
Absolutely. I think I came in as a transfer student in Mays, and
right.
Everyone already knew each other, and that really overwhelmed me. So I didn't talk to people. Like I didn't make friends in my classes even. I went to class and I went home. And I had the built-in family in the swim team. And so I think, like putting myself out there sooner and getting connected sooner. But then also I think some of my most rewarding experiences were in, high impact classes and things similar to that, my senior year and my 5th year. And it was when I, got out of the accounting program and interacted in, group settings, group projects, presentations, whatever, with people that had different backgrounds that like weren't all accounting majors too. And so I think just exposing myself to people with different backgrounds who think differently, like I wish I had done that sooner. And to this day, I continue to tell people that, like, when we go on campus and recruit and things like that, like I tell, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, like it's definitely something I wish I had done more of and had done it sooner.
Thanks for sharing that. How is Bain adjusting to the coronavirus pandemic? What does an average day for you look like right now? You kind of alluded to it a little bit before when you said you're not leaving your house. But how do you think this will change the industry going forward?
Yeah, I've been really proud of Bain's response. I think they've handled it really well. I mean, a typical week, no pandemic, we would normally be at the client site 4 days a week, and then we would be in the home office on Fridays. And so we were already pretty well equipped to work remotely because like we kind of were, like we when you go to the client, like you don't know, I mean, they put you in a room somewhere, right? But you don't know what that room's going to have. And so, we're used to working on just our laptops, moving around, what have you. And so at least that part, the consulting part of the firm was set up for that. I know like central support staff and recruiting have had to make big adjustments. But I feel like they've done so in stride. We've started having virtual recruiting events already, and they're making plans to make it virtual, I think, at least through the summer and fall. I'm not sure. But there's been just a ton of over communication from the start. Weekly emails, both from like the national and global level and the Texas level, answering questions. They raced to make sure that we could have extra monitors at home and extra childcare for the people who have to work from home and have little kids. And they made sure that like mental health help was available. I think I get an email once a week that's saying like, if you're stressed, you can call this number. And so they've just really worked hard to make sure all the resources are there. We can get our questions answered if we have them. They were quick to install Zoom with extra security. And so it hasn't felt like that big of a change, apart from that we're not traveling. And there's honestly parts of it, like, it feels weird to say this, but there's parts of it that I have liked, just because all of that time spent traveling, getting ready for the day, dressing up, whatever, is now time that I have, like that we have back. And so they've been really careful and conscientious to balance, like, well, all that extra time doesn't just go to working, right? Being kind of like work from home. They've been really big about setting work from home norms. And one of my work from home norms that I set for my work stream was me and my direct report want to go for walks, like short 20, 30-minute walks at lunch and dinner every day. And so we tell our team that. Our team makes it a priority, and we do that. So we get sunshine and fresh air. So that's been really cool in terms of like, it has changed my day-to-day, right? And then I'm not traveling. I'm not getting on a plane Monday morning, which I would have been for this current case I'm on. But I usually wake up at like 6 or 6:30, work out, shower, eat, get online, like 8:30. We have a team check-in at 9. I don't know, work all day. Like I said, go for walks at lunch and dinner. Maybe cook. I usually try to meal prep on the weekends just so I'm not having to cook during the week. And then have an end of day check-in, maybe take an hour and a half off around dinner, and then get back on for maybe, depends on how heavy the day is, but maybe get back on for another 1 to 3 hours after dinner. So that's like what a typical day would look like. But I think in terms of, how it's going to change going forward, and we've been talking about this with some of the partners and stuff, but they, especially like the senior leadership, travels a lot, especially when they have multiple clients. And I think now that we've, everything has gone virtual and we've seen what we can accomplish virtually. And I think our clients have seen like the quality of work we can deliver when we're virtual. I think that there probably will be a lot less travel. I think definitely will still travel, but I think we will probably do significantly less, which is, there's good and bad things to that, right? A lot of good and bad things, but it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how it changes, because as far as I know, like I'm going to school in the fall, and we're probably still going to be work from home through, I leave like August 1st is around then is when I'll leave Bain. And so, I don't know, like when I come back 2 years from now, I think everything's probably going to look a little different, but I won't see those changes for 2 years because I'll be in school.
In that answer, you mentioned setting new norms, I think was the term you used. And you talked about going on walks at lunch and dinner with you and your direct report. What are some of the other common norms that you're hearing that people are establishing to help them with remote work or with their life in the process of remote work?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's over communicating, like when you're going to be AFK, away from keyboard, right?
Yeah.
Is one that I've seen. Taking a couple hours off, like taking 2 hours off at dinner. Some of the senior leadership on my team, one of them is like, well, my wife needs to work or study for these certain hours. So for this block of time in the afternoons, I'm not super available because I'm watching my 10-month-old. Or, my wife needs to go do this. And so for this block of time, or like this time is like bed and bath time. And so the ones with kids, like they will serve a chunk of time or a couple hours and just let the team know, like, this is when I'm going to go be a parent. You can talk to me before and after. And so just setting those boundaries. I think like instead, sometimes they'll get on really early in the morning, or right now we're working across different time zones. And so that plays into it as well. But I think, like setting something like no work after 11 p.m., some things like that are the same as they were before the pandemic. But I think just making sure that not only do we set these things, but we have weekly conversations about them in our case team meetings and like hold each other accountable to them is something that I think we've done a really good job of. And that's not only coming from my team, but also like the leadership in the office and like the weekly reminder emails and stuff like that. They've done a really good job pushing that, just because, like I said, all that extra time that you're not commuting, traveling, getting ready, all of that. If that just went to working, then I think we'd all be a little burned out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Rapid fire. What do you think is people's biggest misconception of you?
I've been told that I'm intimidating, which I hate it when I hear that. Most of the time I don't know what I'm doing. I want to be seen as like approachable, because I'm just such a big, like I'm such Myers-Briggs F. Like I am such an like incredibly empathetic person, and I just like want to be friends with everybody. Like I just want to be your friend. I just want to get to know you, understand you. And so just because I work in consulting, or just because I do this, like, I don't know. I think like some jobs like that or something come with a stereotype, right? And I kind of hate that sometimes.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. If you could have anyone as a mentor for one day, who would it be?
Melinda Gates. When I did my externship at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So August 2019 through January of this year, I was there in Seattle, and I ran into her in the hallway once. Me and my roommate did. We freaked out and didn't know what to do, and she smiled at us, and we just kind of panicked. And then I got to hear her speak once as part of my time there. But I think just for a lot of reasons, we have similar background, similar faith. And she is just doing such cool work, and would love to like get to have like more of like a one-on-one conversation with her. I think that would be so fantastic, even though I worked at her foundation for 6 months. And so I know a little bit more about what she's doing now than I did before. And I've read her book, highly recommend it. It's called The Moment of Lift. But I would love to get to spend more time with her. That would be like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, she's great. What is the most important advice you would give to yourself exactly 5 years ago?
I think this was when I was getting towards the end of my swimming career and was just really absorbed in it, and hadn't really started to branch out outside of sports and stuff yet. And so I think, I would tell myself, like the advice I told you earlier, needing to seek out other outlets, like expose myself to more different people with different ways of working, different trains of thought, and getting more involved in that way and challenging myself in that way by getting out of my comfort zone. And then also just that, there's like a lot more to life than sport. There's a lot more to life than swimming, and there's so much more in store for you. And like the next 5 years are going to change so much.
Sure.
And you just have no idea what it's going to look like.
What is the book you've given most often as a gift?
Probably Everybody Always by Bob Goff. I feel like that's a pretty popular book at A&M, but it's just a book about how to love everybody always. And it just made me really critically think about like my day-to-day interaction, and kind of like analyze that. And so I think it, if you read a book that like changes the way you think, like profoundly impacts the way you think day to day, not just when you're reading the book, right? It's a pretty valuable thing. And so I think that's why I like to share it.
If you could have a billboard anywhere, what would it say? Or a billboard with, sorry, Kyle. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it say and why?
Oh gosh, I'm not really good at designing my own billboards, but there is this one billboard I saw that I would just like to have more of. I don't know if I could design my own. When I was in Seattle, I was on a bike ride and, had just moved there and like didn't really know anybody, was trying to get used to the city and went out for a bike ride. And I saw, it was one of those, it's like a series of billboards. It's like be kind, pass it on or whatever. There's some campaign. And it was Garth Brooks. And it was Garth Brooks. And it was a quote like from one of his songs, "We shall be free." And it's like, when there's only one race and that's mankind. And I don't know why, like that billboard just made me so excited. A, because I was in the middle of Seattle and I was like staring at one of my favorite country artists.
Yeah.
And like, it was just like a piece of home. And I love that song. I love Garth Brooks and I love that billboard and what it meant to me at that moment. And so I would love if there are a few more of those.
Yes, that is a great song. What is your fondest memory of TAMU?
It was like the combination of like winning conference as a team my senior year, which was a really great way to go out. And then right after that, went on this just awesome New York trip with the Business Fellows program. And so it was really just, for me, it was, finishing on a high note with swimming and maybe not doing something like personally, I didn't qualify for NCAAs my senior year. And so maybe I didn't do as well as I wanted personally, but at least I helped the team. And as a team, we won our first conference championship, right? And then right after that, instead of, I didn't make spring break plans because I was hoping to go to nationals, right? And so instead, going on that Fellows New York trip, it was kind of like, okay, maybe swimming didn't end the way I wanted, but there's so much more in store and I'm going to explore so many new things, build all these new friendships, and there's going to be a lot of life after swimming. And I think that was like this 2-week period my senior year. Luckily I still had my 5th year to get my life together in the PPA program.
Yeah, I took a victory lap as well. So I'm with you there. Anyone you would like to send good bull as we close out?
I haven't talked to her in a couple weeks, but I know my friend and woman from my Titans class, Ariane Couch, is working for the Department of the Treasury in Washington, D.C. right now. And I know that she is just working insane hours and supporting the government. And so just thinking about her and, my friends that are working in hospitals or in different ways to support their communities. And, during this pandemic, I think of her especially, it makes me feel like it was like, if she can work that much and make those sacrifices, then I can too.
Love that. All right. How can our listeners support Feed the Frontline?
So I think for us, the best thing you can do is either donate through our website or spread the word. So social media posts, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. Our parent website is ftfl.org, and that will show you all the different cities we're operating in. And then if you're interested in donating to Texas, it's ftfltexas.org is our website. And I swear the website's changing every day. We're growing so fast. We update it, and it'll have our Instagram feed and all that. So,
Colleen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
For our MasterCast top 3 takeaways, first, I just wanted to say that I'm so jealous that you both got to go to the Olympic trials. I don't even care that you didn't make it to the Olympics. I just want any affiliation with the Olympics that I could have.
It was quite an experience. Honestly, running at NACAC was even more so, because then we actually got to wear the red, white, and blue, had Team USA across the front, and they played the national anthem when we won. I mean, it's not the Olympics, but it was one of my top 3 life experiences. And that was never something that was a goal of mine. It happened. It was serendipity, and it came out of, what happened at NCAAs and so forth. But, and
I'm surprised it wasn't a goal. It was a goal of mine from birth, and I had no chance of ever being in the Olympics or the Olympic trials, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know. It's something that I didn't feel like was achievable. And I guess in a way, I was selling myself a little bit short, but in a way, I also acknowledge how lucky I got. One of my coaches, Glenn McMicken, got in touch with the guy who was coaching the NACAC team and said, "Hey, you need to give this guy a look." And there were 10 other guys that he could have chosen that were about my level, but it seems like it worked out. The coach from the American team was very happy with the selection after the fact, which humbles me.
That's pretty cool. For our second takeaway, I wanted to talk about Colleen's work with Feed the Frontline. I just was so impressed with how much they had done in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
It seems remarkable, especially with having other jobs, being consultants at Bain. And I think one of the other founders, either Leah or Sarah, as a teacher. And just, I mean, it's incredible what they have done so very quickly.
Yeah. And these are not words that I would say very often, but thank you to the IRS for getting everything approved so quickly. It seems like that was, good look for everyone.
And that's something that a lot of people wouldn't have even tried to do. Because they're like, there's no way. We'll just do it without the 503c stat, whatever. 501c3.
Yeah.
We'll do this without the 501c3 status and we'll just keep going on. But they didn't. They pushed through. They found people who could help them. They utilized their network and made it happen. It's really impressive and a great idea. One of the other things, I got to be on a call with Colleen the week before we interviewed her, and with Sarah and Leah, the other people who started the organization. And it was really interesting because they actually said that people came to the organization with different primary missions. For some people, it was to support local restaurants. And for some people, it was to support the healthcare workers. And it was really cool that even with a different mission, they could come together and accomplish a goal. And I thought that doesn't happen very often in organizations, that you could have kind of two different focuses that can accomplish the same thing. And they've done that, which is really cool.
Yeah, that does sound great. Yeah, a lot of people, it's kind of like, I feel like crisis often brings out the best in us. And it's been really inspiring to see all the different ways that we're pulling together as a society. The other side of that coin, of course, is the politicization of all of this. But
yeah, you just made me tired. So moving on. No.
The politicization.
Of course, there is that. But
yes,
it is really cool to see how people step up to help each other. There's an organization here in College Station called Reach that's really doing some great things. Deb Mann's been a big part of that. So shout out to Reach and all that they're doing to help feed people in the community who have lost their jobs and were already in jobs that didn't have as many benefits as the jobs that you and I have. So I really appreciate what they're doing here in the community.
Yeah, for sure.
For our last takeaway, I just wanted to acknowledge that Colleen graduated from the professional program in accounting. And we always say that one of the best things about that program is that you don't have to decide what you want to be when you grow up. You just keep getting to defer that decision. And she kind of talked about that a little bit with consulting too. So she deferred the decision in college by doing the professional program in accounting, which gives you an undergrad in accounting and a master's in whatever area of business you'd like. And then she went into consulting, which let her defer that decision a little bit later. And then now she's going to get her MBA and go back into consulting, kind of keep kicking that can down the road of what she wants to be when she grows up, which is a pretty cool little luxury to have there, and then figure it out someday, right?
Yeah.
That was cool.
It really is. It really is a luxury at this point to just kind of be learning and continuing to grab proficiencies from here and there, and then make a decision later, and then understand that that decision may change too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not locked into anything. So.
No, definitely not. But I like that. I like that little benefit.
Yes.
So we appreciate Colleen being on the show. Ben, do you want to close us with a quote?
I would love to close us with a quote. I am not one of those who neglect the body in order to make of it a sacrificial offering for the soul, since my soul would thoroughly dislike being served in such a fashion. Rainer Rilke. Thanks for listening.
An MBA from Texas A&M University can take your career to a whole new level. With full-time and weekend options, Texas A&M suits your schedule. So get a better gig. Visit mba.tamu.edu.